in terms of energy density, in terms of cost per energy density, and really overall effectiveness, it's going to be the lithium battery. And
hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Richer Geek Podcast. Today we have Richard Flentge. He's a former co-host of EVTV, which is a worldwide webcast, private renewable energy research facility. This guy knows everything about, or we'll find out if he does, but electric vehicles. We're going to talk about Tesla, solar tech, and battery tech, solar innovations, and all of that. So it's a pleasure to have you on, Richard. How you doing?
I'm doing good this morning. It's a low humidity day here in Missouri, so that's always a good way to start. And,
it is.
I'm excited. I've been writing on a book, and that's kind of been my latest thing. I retired a year or so ago, and so I really write and kind of advocate the electric vehicle revolution and try to help bridge that gap between the people that love it and the people that don't love it. And I have a good time. I seem to irritate both sides when I get around to it. So,
well, there's nothing wrong with
that's right.
With doing that. You know, it's funny. I have a Tesla.
Yeah.
But I have it because I like the tech, and I like the speed. You know, and I'm not one of those that. So, you know, I'm kind of one of those oxymoron type people. It's like, you know, I'm not doing it because it's good for the environment. I like it because it's a cool car. How do you advocate some of the people? You know, it's like there are a lot of people that look at a Tesla and go, you know, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I had a little bit of a hot rod background, and that's sort of how I got into EVTV. I originally did the custom truck craze back in the 90s. I had a big customer there in Phoenix, and they did the keep on trucking and the convertible little mini trucks. And so I had a flair kind of for hot rodding. And we originally started out with a business converting gasoline cars to electric. And that was where I got started. So I sort of started on the hot rod side. And then we ended up, Tesla came along and basically just wiped that business out. Because if you were going to spend $40,000 for something you were going to cobble together just to have an electric car, you could spend a little bit more and get a Tesla, and it worked all the time. So we were there really right at the beginning. I have funny stories. Now I'll back up just a little bit. The founder of the company was an internet entrepreneur. And the guy that I worked with actually had a very interesting story. He was one of the original internet board watch guys. So he was back there at the very beginning of the internet. And he ended up catching a wave in the stock bubble and made a bucket load of money, like tens of millions of dollars. So he came back and started this company, and he wanted to evangelize the electric vehicle. And that's where I came along. So we were there working with lithium ion batteries really about the same time Elon Musk and JB Straubel were building the Roadster. And ended up, we would convert mainly VWs. VW has that transmount transmission, and you could mate a electric motor right up to the transmission with a coupler and an adapter plate. And began doing we did a little Speedster, and we did a couple Porsches and VW things, and all that took off. Well, Tesla wiped that out, that whole business model. People still do it, and there's still some contacts, and there's a couple companies in California that still do it. So that went away, and we started working with technology. So what the company did, and I did more management. I don't want to make any claims that I was an electrical engineer, but we basically hacked the Tesla Model S and developed a hack software that would operate the Tesla battery modules. And I don't know if anybody is, you kind of get familiar. If you want to talk about technology, Tesla basically advanced a complete software system that controls everything. So you have a giant line of code that feeds everything. So like every single code line runs through the entire network. So your devices, your brakes, your accelerator, your headlights, your air conditioner all receive code. So then your brakes will only respond to a code that say starts with B. And your air conditioner responds to a code that says AC. Well, what we did was, or what as a collective group, we did what was called a CAN sniffer, and we tapped into their computer network and we sniffed out code. So when we did certain things, we could capture the code. And then when you capture the code, you can hack out all the rest of the parts. And then we developed a small little microprocessor that would spoof the Tesla car and tell the batteries to turn on and off. And if you don't do that, the batteries remain simply dead. You don't have any way to operate a Tesla battery. It's not like a car battery that's still alive. It takes itself and completely goes dead. So we developed a way to operate Tesla, repurposed them. They would take them out of salvage batteries, out of salvage cars. We would take the batteries and put them together and put a little controller on it. And they would go to sometimes mainly solar builders and off-grid people, because
there you go.
The salvage Tesla was much cheaper because batteries are still fairly expensive, somewhat of a hindrance to that business.
So what do you think what do you think the future of the lithium?
Lithium is the technology. We tested multiple batteries, and that's one of the things we did in the research facility. So you would take a battery, you would charge it up, and I'm talking like an individual cell or a small battery, and then you would create various loads. So you would try to draw the battery down, and then you would see how long it would maintain its current before it goes to what's called a drop off or a discharge level that no longer makes it operate. And really nothing comes close to lithium. So as a whole, lithium is the answer in terms of cost effective and really maintaining a charge.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the arguments with the electric cars is, number one, we don't have enough lithium, or we don't have enough electricity to generate all of these cars. And so you're saying that lithium is still the answer over something like a natural gas car, propane car, other types of. So that's still,
I'm thoroughly convinced lithium, and
lithium.
I will evangelize. I do not believe, in terms of energy density, in terms of cost per energy density, and really overall effectiveness, it's going to be the lithium battery. And that's really what I proclaim in the book. So kind of the title and the way I subtitle the book is basically the lithium battery is going to save planet Earth and stop climate change and That is the technology. Absolutely.
So you think there's enough that we can find enough lithium?
Oh yeah. I believe that. Yeah, there's a lot of lithium.
Mm.
The entire country of Afghanistan is lithium. Just China's got a lot of it. They found a lot in South America.
Yeah.
And it is mineable and it is producible, and it's a pretty largely available component. So yeah.
And you think that Tesla started it all, and I hate the fact that it seems like the government is all of a sudden anti-Tesla for some reason.
They put some pressure on Detroit, and they put pressure on an existing base. Employs a lot of people. I'm a big fan of Detroit, and I love their cars, and I believe they're going to come on. But they have a large ship. They have hundreds of thousands of employees, and they got to move in another direction. So in a way, if anything, they're sandbagging Tesla and slowing it down a little bit to let Detroit catch up.
Yeah. And it's too bad that the government that we have would do that. Here's Elon Musk is the innovator. He's the creator of this wonderful technology. But because he's not a unionized company, they're like, we don't care about you. We only care about people that give us money, the lobbyists and things like. And so it's a shame that you have a party that sits there and says, we need all this. We need the lithium. We need electric cars. We need this, but we hate Elon because he's not playing the game that we want him to play.
I think it goes even a little deeper than that. I think he could upset the apple cart over there completely. And he could, if Tesla pounded it, and it could topple some companies. So, in a balanced approach, I think we have to be, somewhat aware of what we do here, because it is a disruptive technology. It is you cannot imagine just the part support that goes into an internal combustion engine. Now, you're talking about 5,000 people. They make die, stamping, milling machine, forging, all that is going to go away. It's not just even the automakers. It's another magnitude of 3 of their supply chain. So it somewhat is a macro problem. So
yeah. So what do you think about other type of savings as far as the wind farms? And
wind farms are working.
Are they?
They are working in certain positions. Now, overarching, I talk about a portable battery. A portable battery allows you to store electricity. And you could actually put that stored electricity on the bed of a truck, on a train trailer, in a car, and you can move it. The one thing about wind farms is that they're not usually very close to populated areas. And there is, with a wind generated DC, there is power loss. So if you can imagine this, just taking the power from the top of the tower to the bottom of the tower through wind farms, it loses some of its power. And you know who originally found that out? Was Thomas Edison. And he proposed DC electric. And what they found out was, though, they had to build a power generating station about every mile to contend with the power loss. So when you factor in the new lithium ion battery, I would argue, or I would advocate, if you would put a giant battery right at the base of the windmill, you would capture all the electricity in a bank and do it much more efficiently. And if I would say into the future, I really believe scenarios in which we have battery banks close to an energy source I think that's kind of the next picture that's coming along.
Hmm.
So, but wind farms are working.
Yeah, and it just needs to be, everything needs to be cheaper.
You're right. Yeah.
For me being an analyst, I look at, all right, it costs this many hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to do the wind farm.
Yeah.
So the per capital cost per home it's crazy. So you're like going, okay, we're spending this amount per home to do it the green way, but it's got to be cheaper. So we have to somehow get the technology to the point where you can't spend $1 billion to electrify 25,000 homes. It's just, it doesn't make sense. So what do you think is going to be, because you're going to have those analytical people that say, look, yeah, it's great, but it's not sustainable because of the cost.
It is overarching. It is a disruption.
Yeah.
So disruption really means disruption. I believe that the battery on scale is really the breakthrough technology, the portable battery. And you live in Arizona, another scenario I would paint for you. You build giant solar arrays. You store the electricity directly into a battery on a train car. That train car then delivers it to Chicago. Okay. There are no transmission lines, no giant infrastructure built, just a giant battery that gets transported from where the energy is produced to where the energy is consumed.
Yeah.
So, and Elon has mentioned this, and you sort of hear it. We can't build enough batteries fast enough.
Right.
But we were going to have a massive battery leap in capacity technology, and that lowers the cost. Now, the other thing I would tell you is that lithium, because it's power dense and cost effective in a car. Now, there are some other technologies that don't have to be so dense and don't have to be so expensive. So if you're not putting in a car, you don't have to have space considerations. You don't have to have it so tightly configured. You could build some lower cost batteries and it'll probably work. Yeah.
And how about just the cost of, even I think Elon Musk said this, that we just don't have enough electricity.
Exactly right. When you look, you're kind of mentioning about the government, but if you look behind the curtain, that's one of it. I've had literally people at my table saying, the grid can't handle this. We don't know they don't know how the grid works now. It's almost like it's a pressure system that they maintain. They're not exactly sure they just know it works. So there are concerns. They are legitimate. So I don't want to understate that. They have legitimate national issues that if you started drawing down the grid, you could create havoc in some way, I guess.
Yeah. You look at California right now, I think by 2030, 2035, they're saying no gas engines can be sold. So everything has to go electric. And there's policies now that if you build a new home, you have to have a level 2 charger in every new build. But they're also doing rolling blackouts on their grid. So it's like, okay, sorry, boss, I can't come into work today because there was a rolling blackout and I couldn't charge my car.
And that kind of, again, you keep circling back to the battery and the battery bank. So what's
your solution?
You would have a battery bank reserve system,
okay,
like you have a water reservoir. So you would run the electricity, and say you ran it from 2 in the morning till 4 in the morning, you filled up that region's battery bank. Then if you want to black it out, you black it out, and the users can use the stored electricity in their battery bank. And California's already popped a Tesla Megapack scenario. So they have one there where but the magnitude of that is multiple millions of battery banks. So if we started producing batteries right now at a huge rate, we still would be. We got a ways to go.
So you have to do something like the Tesla wall, the solar, where you can just store. You have that bank in your house, and you can
have intermittent connection to the grid, and the grid can be on and off. You got it exactly. That's basically what I advocate, and that's really what conventional wisdom is coming together as the solution, which is very similar to the way water works.
Yeah. And that's worked. It's worked, out in the Midwest for a long time. You have the water wheels that generates electricity.
But it's here. It's just not.
So what do you think 5 years from now? What do you think is going to be?
I don't know how far we're getting 5 years. I'm surprised when I traveled around and I had a Model 3, how difficult it was if I got away from city areas to find charging. So I would say I'm not, I believe it's just going to be one of those. It's going to seed and seed and seed and then finally grow together. I bet 5 years from now, it is substantially moved forward, but only because Detroit and several automakers have a lot of car models starting to hit the dealer lots, and that's going to pressure some more advancement in charging. So I guess it'll just keep growing. But now an adoptive curve, and a lot of people talk about this, it goes along and it's sort of flat, and then it kind of upticks a little bit. But when it hits the point that everybody wants to do it, it goes straight up. So, and now the other thing that Elon had alluded to was the lower price Tesla. When that, no matter what, it's still hard to crack even 50. It's hard for me. I mean, but a lot of people cracking $50,000-$60,000 on a car versus 25,000. When it gets to a pragmatic point, where or really adoptive, frugal, they make the decision based on economics. When that low cost electric car comes out, that's probably when you're going to see an uptick. And they've almost, and that probably is what's going to fry the grid. So you'll be like, you'll plug in your car and the lights will go out,
I know. Well, they just can't, the grid just can't handle everyone plugging in, because everything's based on 60s, 70s technology. And, even now it's like, okay, every house that was built before the 90s probably has to have a brand new electrical box. Bigger breakers.
You talk about technology. There's an ex-Tesla employee, this Arch Rao, that has developed a company called SPAN, SPAN, and they have basically a smart electrical box. So they have an electrical box that will prioritize circuits with a microprocessor, and then it has internal relays. So say you have your car charged up and you have a solar array. You can tell your electrical grid just to take all of the power out of the solar panels and put them straight into your car. Or you can tell the SPAN smart panel, I only want to have these circuits on. I want to turn off everything else. So there is, and I think that's critical, and that's something we learned. You kind of have to be able to control your end user management of how you use electricity. You're going to have to be able to turn certain things on and off. And you have to be able to relate to solar power, turn it on and have it used for something very specific. So the technology is kind of, it's creeping up. It's coming. I'm enthused about it. Now the span is several $1,000s, you know. It's not
well, so, you know, that's the thing is to get the buy-in, especially from someone like me that's more analytical, is you know, the cost has to, it's like, you know, I'm not putting solar on my house because it'll be paid off in 25 years and I might be dead by then. And then no one wants to take over the lease. You know, it's almost a detriment to have it on. So, you know, there's got to be other ways to sit there and say, it's like, okay, you do this. And it has to be something other than, well, you know, it's good for the planet. Well, how many millions of people just don't, it's like that, don't care because it's too expensive. You know, so something's got to happen.
You know, that is you're nailing it. And I worked, we had two solar arrays, and we basically tested off-grid technology. That's what we did for years. And, you know, kind of in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't think the average guy is going to be doing this. But now here's the flip on that: bi-directional charging. So, and you saw, I don't know if you saw that in California, they're trying to pass a bill where bi-directional charging is required to be installed on all electric vehicles. Well, if you have bi-directional charging, it means you can go to your work, and if they have a solar grid, you don't have to mess with all the engineering of all that. You plug in your car, you fill up your car, you simply drive home to your garage, and you plug it in to your smart electrical system, and it powers your house. So, and I advocate in the book, and I would say the big solution is going to be the portable battery. I don't think people are going to operate a micro power plant. I don't see that. You're like, I'm in there, and I remember getting yelled at, don't ever touch that switch. Don't flip nothing if you don't know what it is, you know? And I could see those funny scenarios.
Yeah. And, you know, I have people that have been on the podcast that they're advocates for more of a, you know, smaller nuclear fusion type of, you know, and, you know, instead of solar, and they're saying that, you know, the nuclear is the way. So it's just, there's all these different things. Very quickly before we leave, let's talk about your book.
Okay. It is written about how the portable battery is going to stop climate change and save planet Earth. I have put a lot into it. And I talk about the history of transportation energy. And then I go into gasoline, the leaded cars, and I do it somewhat in a humorous way, in a kind way. And I am not a completely left-wing environmentalist, and I'm not a completely, you know, I try to stay in the middle with the book. Missouri's kind of a very middle book, but I explain the advantages of the technology. I give very specific examples. I talk about product advances. If you're looking for really a complete picture of kind of where this battery and the climate change and the future of solar, it sort of gives you those answers.
And the name of the book is
Verities of an Electric Mule. And I really, right now, I'm just selling it on my website.
And where can people find you?
I go to richardflenge.com, RICHARDFLENTGE.
Yep. So everybody, yes, Flenge is, there's a T in there, FLENTGE, and it's Richard. And you know, if you're interested, get his book, and it's probably an interesting read about future renewable energy solutions and the concepts behind it. And Richard, I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, blast.
And hopefully someone will get something out of this and think, yeah,
it's coming, and I'm kind of a bridge guy in the middle, I suppose. And I think everybody better be paying attention to it, because it is on the horizon, and whether we take advantage of it, probably our children will.
Absolutely.
If we can do anything to help the future out, we ought to do it.
Well, I love my Tesla car, and I like that it's very fast and has a lot of technology. But we'll see what the future. I've got the Cybertruck on order. One of these years, cool. I'll probably get it.
That was my signature show we did, was the Cybertruck Debacle. Do you remember when they threw the?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we had been running the show, and I'm telling you, that event, they hadn't picked up the glass yet, and we filmed a humorous YouTube video on that. It got about 300,000 views. It was actually one of my few feathers, I suppose, at EVTV. I got to co-host that show. We made fun and had a big time with that. So
there you go. Yeah, we'll see if that ever comes to fruition.
They're driving it around. I'm telling you, it's going to show up.
I want to drive it around too, so we'll see when I get it. But Richard, thank you so much for
Pleasure to be
coming
here.
on the podcast. Thanks.
Okay.